Like many people, one of our favourite holidays of the year is Halloween. For us, it's always a great excuse to head out and catch some really spooky fun. In fact, we plan whole trips around the season and just love hunting out the best Halloween spots in the country. One location naturally stands out more than any other as the most Halloweeny Halloween town of them all. Not only is it steeped in myths and legends where the hysteria and bloodshed of the New England witch trials came to a head, it is also the quintessential New England town which really embraces the season, with houses decked in pumpkins and ghoulish paraphernalia and streets lined with revelers all looking for the ultimate Halloween experience. Welcome, of course, to Salem, Massachusetts, home to the Salem witch trials and officially dubbed Witch City. This is the #1 place we have visited for Halloween, and in this video we show you exactly what you can expect on your visit with our top 10 things to do when visiting Salem at Halloween. Prepare for some really haunted happenings. There is an awful lot going on in Salem at Halloween, so let's take a look. While Salem has always been a well-known locale, it has become immortalized as a location featured in several Hollywood films. So one of our favourite activities is simply hunting out the various filming locations dotted around the city. We have a handy guide over on our main website, yourusacityguide.com, to help you hunt out the best. Some of the films shot in the city include the Disney classic Hocus Pocus, the iconic Bewitched TV series, and the more modern Hubie Halloween. To be honest, we mainly focus on Hocus Pocus filming locations, and some of these sites cross over with the other attractions we are going to list. But it is really so much fun just hunting out these iconic locations. Some of these highlights are Max and Danny's house, Allison's family home, the old town hall, and the house of the 7 Gables. We show you some of these here, but we will point out some more as we check out the other highlights around the city. Always remember to be respectful around people's private dwellings and simply get the photos you require and then quietly move along. While we were visiting Max and Danny's house, this car decided to completely ignore the closed road signs and drove right up to the front of the door. Very disrespectful. Essex Street is the main shopping and entertainment street in the city. For most locations this would be Main Street or Front Street, but in Salem the main hub has coalesced around Essex Street. This pedestrianised street is filled with various quirky shops, excellent restaurants and various attractions and curiosities. There are even a few museums thrown in. During Halloween this is the beating heart of Witch City and is filled with all kinds of seasonal pop-ups, from haunted houses, specialist museums stroke exhibits, to just quirky people in crazy costumes wandering around offering photos, or witches offering whatever services witches claim to offer. It's all just really vibrant and fun, and should be the first location you head to in the city. Here you will also find the Bewitched statue as a monument to the witchy TV show that was filmed in the city. Just across from the street, the must-visit Black Cat shop. The Salem Witch Museum was built in the 1970s as an ultra-high-tech attraction to help tell the tale of the infamous Salem witch trials. The detailed and intricate dioramas thrilled audiences as they told the dark tales of these brutal times. The problem is, however, what was ultra-high-tech in the 70s seems pretty crude by today's standards, and the museum has not changed one bit since opening its doors. However, it's still an absolute must-do, and still retains a really creepy vibe as the eerie narrator tells the tale of the witch's poor fate, the lifeless mannequins just glaring back at you through the gloom. At Halloween, you need to book early to make sure you get a spot in the museum. It really sells out fast, and you're unlikely to get a spot on the day. We visited using our Go Boston Pass, which we will leave a link to above. However, we were unable to film inside to help keep the mysteries of the museum for you to discover by yourself. There is nothing creepier than a good old-fashioned cemetery, and New England has a very special way of just plonking theirs right in the heart of the city. Salem has several, and they are all well worth a visit. Our favourite is Old Burial Hill Cemetery. This doubles up as a Hocus Pocus filming location, but possibly not the one you are thinking of. This is where Max first meets the bullies, Jay and Ice. The nighttime cemetery scenes, where Billy the zombie comes alive, are all filmed on a studio soundstage. The cemetery is set on a hill just outside of Salem, over in Marblehead. The cemetery is one of the prettiest locations we have visited. In fall, the autumnal leaves add an amazing colour to the scene, and the elevated burial hill offers stunning views over the New England coast and the pretty little village of Marblehead. It's a bit of a trek to get to, especially if you are not driving, but you can link this up with the Pioneer Village. Right in the heart of Salem is the Burying Point Cemetery. This is the oldest cemetery in Salem and the final resting place of many of the city's most prominent townsfolk. This is home to the Witch Trial Memorial and is a really creepy place at night. There's also the Howard Street Cemetery, where a lot of the witch trial victims are interned in unmarked graves. This one has a really creepy feel to it, as many of the graves are unmarked and you get the feeling there were lots of unhappy folks who lived long, hard, short lives who ended up here. You cannot enter after dark, but you can still visit by staying on the sidewalk outside. If you have ever wondered what life was like in the pioneer era, then the Pioneer Village is your chance to find out. If that isn't one of your life's little wonders, like us, then well, the village is still a great spot to see just what things were like in the witchcraft trial era. It's a great little living museum, which really helps put the missing pieces of what life was like in these dark times into context. It has a really creepy and weird feeling, like you are stepping back into the witchcraft era. This is another filming location for Hocus Pocus, as some of the Pioneer Village shots at the beginning of the film were shot here. Take care when planning your visit, however, as the village only opens at weekends, even in the height of the Halloween season. Like Essex Street, the Common is another hub for Salem Halloween events. Here you will find a country fair style atmosphere with midway games, fairground deep fried foods, candy apples and the odd ride. The Common is right in the heart of the city and right opposite the Witch Museum, and besides being the home of the city's haunted happenings, it's also a really iconic part of the city and once again used in several TV shows and films. Here you will see lots of people in fancy dress and witch costumes, which really helps add to the fun Halloween feel of Witch City. You will also find the school used in Hocus Pocus and the old Hawthorne Hotel, one of the most haunted buildings in Salem. More on that later. The Peabody Museum is one of Salem's top attractions and is well worth a visit any time of the year. To be honest, it's not that great of a Halloween attraction. It's less focused on the occult and more on straight history, but it's still worth checking out. The Peabody Essex Museum also owns the Rope Mansion, which is definitely more of a Halloween attraction, and is also an iconic filming location, being used as Alison's house in the Hocus Pocus films. The house really embraces the Halloween season, especially at night as the house glows an eerie demonic red. A couple more really cool houses for you to see in the area, the Witch House and the House of the Seven Gables. The House of the Seven Gables is a fantastic piece of architecture, and while this was not used in any films, it is well known as the inspiration for the Witch's house in Hocus Pocus, and was recreated on set in Universal Studios. However, the house itself is one of the oldest in Salem and an iconic piece of architecture and well worth checking out in its own right. The Witch House is another really historic piece of architecture, and this was home to Jonathan Corwin, one of the witch trial judges, although it's unsure just how involved he was in the later stages. This creepy building has adopted its witchy heritage and has been converted into a museum inside, where you can learn more about the infamous trials. Salem is a lot of fun during the day, but at night it takes on a whole new feel. The old buildings, eerie lights, creepy cemeteries, it's a whole heap of spooky fun. As the big day draws near, weekend crowds are really quite insane, and simply getting into town on the actual day is a challenge. We used the Destination Salem app, which really helped alert us to how busy things were and when parking and attractions such as the Witch Museum were about to sell out. When you consider the size of Salem, along with the huge population of the surrounding areas, some 25 million people, it's not hard to see why this small popular Halloween destination becomes so crowded. But it's really worth visiting as the whole party atmosphere really takes over the town centre in the evening. Essex Street will be crammed with revellers and people in all kinds of fancy dress costumes. It is so much fun. Or head away from the busier locations and check out some creepy churches and cemeteries. We really have saved the best attraction till last, and for us this was the #1 thing to do in Salem at Halloween, a ghost tour. There are many companies offering ghost tours in the city, and you can find a link to those above and in the description. But while the locations and content of the tours will change slightly, and most have a unique selling point, they are all quite similar, and to be honest, you'll end up being part of most of them, as there are literally 10 to 15 tours going on all around at the same time. We went with the Black Cat Shops tour, and this was an amazing experience. We had a fantastic guide who took us around some of the best haunted locations in the city, with tales of the unfortunate souls who didn't quite make it to the other side and still reside in the city, along with tales of witchcraft, murder, accidents and disease. We find these kind of tours fascinating, and while we didn't really get any supernatural experiences on this tour, there's always the chance of seeing something unexplainable or just catching a really off vibe while exploring these historic haunted locations. But even without a ghost sighting, they are still really good fun and hugely interesting learning about the city's past. In fact, the only really unexplainable thing that happened to us on our visit was the creepy cupboard in our hotel that refused to stay shut while we were out of the room. Remember to book your ghost tours well in advance, as these can and do sell out around Halloween. Things to consider. For more information and links to all the attractions we listed, check out our detailed guide at yourusacity.com. And please like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video. We really cannot understate how busy it can be at this time of year, and this just gets worse and worse the closer you get. On Halloween itself, you can barely even walk down Essex Street as it is that packed with revellers. If big crowds are not your thing, or you are expecting a smaller, quiet town, then Salem is not going to be what you expected. With that in mind, you may not want to actually visit on Halloween itself. The city's events go on all month, and the town is much quieter earlier on in October, and again, you will find midweek quieter still. However, the huge crowds are quite fun. Seeing the city so bustling is quite an experience, but hotel prices and dining reservations become harder and harder to get hold of. You do not really need a long time in the city. 2 full days would allow you to see most of the things you would want, and you can fit an awful lot of it into a single day. We only visited for 1 night for this trip and packed a huge amount in. However, there is an awful lot to see and do in Salem, so longer trips would still keep you busy. Salem does not have a huge amount of hotel rooms, as the city is pretty quiet for most of the year. This means when the demand soars in October, so do the prices, as availability plummets. We managed to grab a room in the excellent Salem Inn for not too bad a price, but if you are really struggling, consider staying nearby in Peabody, where prices are lower, but you are still within an easy commute of Salem. The best way to describe the New England weather in October would be changeable, or unpredictable. On our trip, we had 75 degrees, blue skies and perfect fall conditions. We wore shorts and t-shirts, and it was quite wonderful. Other years, however, it can be torrential rain, fog, blustery winds, or just frigid temperatures. There have even been snowy Halloweens on record. You never really know, so be prepared for any eventuality and check the local forecasts just before your visit. Overall, we had such an amazing time in Salem during Halloween, and we really hope this video helped you understand exactly what to expect in the city on your visit. While the crowds are a real issue, it's still absolutely worth visiting the most Halloween town of all during the country's best holiday season. Thanks for watching, and happy Halloween!